Hello, everyone. Welcome. A week late, but still here. The Star Wars
Worth
show.
the wait.
Yes. Whatever Star Wars show we're gonna eventually call this thing here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. My
Yeah.
name is Matthew. Joining me tonight is my friend Rachel,
Hello.
and we're gonna talk episode 9 of Andor.
Whew.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
banger.
Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Much like nobody's watching, but they should be.
See,
They
this is,
absolutely should
I
be.
think people are going to figure it out. We're going to be like a cult hit, like not appreciated in our time, but later on, people will circle back and discover us and be like, wow, they did great work.
Yes, I think so. I think so. So we're gonna dive into this, but first, there is I guess a piece of big Star Wars news that occurred this
hmm
past week or so. We got the cast of the Acolyte, the new show. Let's see who is doing this. Leslie Headland,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Showrunner of Russian Doll, which was a great series on Netflix. Very
Okay,
like
I've never
time
seen that.
twisty. It's good. It's quite good. Yeah.
Is it? Okay,
hmm
I might have to check that out. We have, let's see, 9 individuals. We have Amanda Stenberg, Lee
Love
Jung
her.
Jae, Manny
hmm
Jacinto,
hmm
Daphne Keene, Jodie Turner Smith, Rebecca Henderson, Charlie Barnett, Dean Charles Chapman, and Carrie Ann Moss.
Yes.
So I've only heard of a couple of these people, Daphne Keene and Carrie Ann Moss. Should I be interested in this cast?
I mean, I actually think this cast looks pretty interesting. I'm curious what it means. I mean, my first take was this is a very queer cast, and I'm wondering with Leslie Headland running it, if that we're finally gonna get we got our lesbians in Andor, and I'm like, are Vel and Cinta walking so that the acolyte can run? I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, Amanda Stenberg was just in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. She's kind of an up and coming star who I really love a lot. Lee Jung Jae was just in Squid Game. He was the lead character in Squid Game, so that's a
Hmm.
kind of an awesome get.
I watched one episode of that and checked out.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
This was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's interesting the creator was talking about how the American response to it is very disturbing. He's like, this is not meant to be aspirational, right? And America's like, yeah, let's do it. Squid Game for real.
It's about time that Hollywood gives me like $50 million so I can make my Long Walk movie that I've always wanted to make.
Yeah, I mean, I got 5 on it. Steve sent me $5 tonight.
Okay.
I'd be happy to throw it in the kitty.
Done.
Did you watch The Good Place?
I think I saw. Is that the one with? Is it Kristen Bell?
Yes, yeah.
I
So
watched one
Manny
episode of that and checked out.
Okay, well, Manny Jacinto is in that. He is a really lovable character in that series. So fans of that show will probably be excited to see him in something a little more serious because he kind of plays like the lovable dum dum on that. So I'm curious to see that. You said you were familiar with Daphne Keene.
She was in
Uh,
Logan, right? X-23. That's the only thing
yeah.
I've ever seen her in.
Well, she was in his Dark Materials, that HBO adaptation of the Golden Compass series.
No idea.
Okay. Well, she's pretty great in it. She's like the main character in that. Charlie Barnett was in Russian Doll. That's the only thing I know him from. Your favorite show, Game of Thrones, is what Dean Charles Chapman is from. He
Oh, great.
plays he plays Tom in the Lion family. Why can't I think of their names? The incest family. He jumps out the window. It's like one of my favorite gifs of him just falling out the window. Ringing any bells at all? No?
No. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Anyways, it's an interesting cast of like
Okay.
people who are kind of like up and coming, and I'm interested to see what I don't know what it tells us about the show, but it's an interesting and pretty diverse cast.
Yeah, this is an interesting show here. And maybe we can talk about this, either on this later this episode or maybe on quote unquote next week's episode because we're recording episodes 9 and 10 on the same night, back to back. So,
Mhm.
but what I feel like I'm all in for anything Star Wars wants to give me now. Like, I'm just kind of like, I don't know what this is about. I guess they've kind of said, well, it deals in the dark side. It's the High Republic. It's like 100
Yeah.
years before the Phantom Menace, right? So that's when, are we going to see Darth Plagueis in here somewhere? Are we going to
Uh-huh.
see that kind of stuff? I'm interested to see if they explore that sort of area. And I've read that it's going to be kind of like a murder mystery sort of thing,
Yeah.
like a Jedi Padawan meets up with the Jedi Master, and they go trying to investigate a series of like murders or something that maybe Sith are involved in. I mean, that sounds cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all in. So I'm
Yeah,
looking
I
forward
mean,
to this.
this week, Andrew Stanton was kind of I don't know if you shared that you probably shared this article with me where he was kind of complaining about and jealous that Tony Gilroy got to do this and he was like free of canon to some degree. And I think it reiterates one of the strengths of this show. It gives me hope that being at such a different time period, so separated from everything we've got so far, will allow this to have some creative freedom and do something interesting. Um
Yeah, and I know that they are doing. For the last couple years, Lucasfilm's novels and comic books have really focused on the High Republic era. That's where
mhm,
all the new stories are being created. I personally have not followed any of that
me
stuff, so
neither.
I intentionally kind of like ignored it because I kind of wanted to go into any sort of live action stuff that they were going to do in that time period completely blank. With
Right.
all of this stuff, I kind of know, generally, the general big picture items of like, okay, the plot's gonna have to eventually move here, 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 here. But I don't really know a whole lot about the High Republic era, so I kind of wanted to just leave that blank, at least what
Mhm.
Lucasfilm's doing with it. So I'm curious and excited to see what they can do with this. One of these nine is obviously going to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to, if you had to guess based on this cast, who would you say is going to be like the Sith Lord or the bad
Ooh.
guy of this?
I mean, if we're talking Sith Lord, it has to be Carrie Ann Moss. Or yeah, I think probably Carrie Ann Moss that would be an interesting kind of twist. Like I'd like to see her be sort of a villainous character, I think. Yeah. I think Dean Charles Chapman, which I know is just typecasting on my behalf because he's like a young white blonde dude. Also feels like he might be the
Fair, 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 fair.
villain.
So yeah, I don't know when the Acolyte comes out. I don't know if it's. I think they're going to start filming it if they haven't already
They
started filming
just
it.
started production this week. Like, they show when
Okay.
they released this cast, they also released a couple of behind the scenes photos of them, like, not in costume, but on the set.
Doing walkthroughs and stuff like
Mhm.
that, being directed. Okay, cool.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, hopefully, I mean, we'll probably get that maybe after Mando season
Yeah.
3 wraps up or something. I mean, you got Ahsoka coming, so maybe it's still a year and a half
Yeah.
away before all that stuff happens. But that'll be
Take
kind of
your
cool.
time. Take your time. Don't
Yeah,
rush it. Don't give me Book of Boba Fett. Give me Andor. Take your time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I do want to touch on just real quick. You mentioned that the writer of Obi-Wan now bitching that he was constrained by canon and whatnot. That presumes that one is incapable of writing a good Obi-Wan story within canon, and I think that is a bunch of bullshit. Like every creative person that I've ever met, save for one who's a delusional asshole, knows when they've done something bad. Like, when you're like, okay, I botched this. That guy should just come out and be like, yeah, I kind of fucked that up. I didn't write the best Obi-Wan story. Because Eddie, go to any sort of Star Wars fanfic out there on the internet, and you can find a better story than what we got in Obi-Wan. So I blame that guy for ruining another classic legacy character. But
Oh, no.
we're not going to
Oh,
get into
no.
that. Maybe after Andor wraps up, because maybe we'll just do an episode on Obi Wan or something like that, so we can just vent our frustrations. Like, do I dare go back and watch Obi Wan? Like, just plow through it again just to see if it gets any better. I don't
Well,
know.
I think we need to watch that recut version. Don't you
Oh
remember?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
That
have it, but I haven't watched it yet because it hasn't been official homework yet, but I have it, so we should
okay.
watch
Well,
it.
yeah, we might discuss whether that is a thing that we do. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Fair
We'll see.
enough.
So now let's get into Andor episode 9. Like, now the interesting thing about this is I got to watch it before you, I believe.
Mhm.
I got
Yep.
back from Minneapolis area, and I just decided, hey, I'm going to watch this, and I was like, all right, I can't wait for Rachel to watch this. And you were obviously overseas
Yes.
and came back and
Yes.
and finally took a look at episode 9. So kick us off. Where do we
Oh,
start?
all right. Episode 9, nobody's listening. Ah, yeah. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and start with Ferrix and Coruscant and your beloved character Deborah
Mhm.
Miro. I'm curious to see if this how this episode impacted your feelings, and I'm worried that the boner only grew. So
Yep. Spoiler.
oh
I'm going full Cyril. I'm
no.
going full Cyril.
You're like, I've never been more seen by a character in my life.
Ah, yes.
Representation matters. You now get it.
Why,
All
yes,
right.
Dedra, I am stalking you.
Oh, Cyril. Okay, so we open up back on Ferrix with Deborah Miro preparing to have Bix tortured. Her cruelty is shocking and impressive. I
Amazing.
yeah, this I mean,
Her
once
acting
again,
in this is so great.
she's genuinely terrifying in this scene. She lays out everything that Bix's friend, who she just finished interrogating, told her, like basically systematically crushing any hope that Bix has. And then ultimately just sort of admits that she won't believe her anyway until she's tortured and leaves her in the horrifically cheerful hands of an Imperial torturer named Mr. Gorst, which is a very German sounding name.
Yeah, yeah.
Whew, yeah, this
Now, what's amazing about this is obviously the acting in this by both
mhm,
all of these actors in this
everyone,
scene is
everyone.
incredible. Just how Dedra is just walking around, like circling Bix like a vulture, right? Just the
Yeah,
whole time, getting in her face. Like she's not like raising her voice or anything, but there's this
no.
moment where she leans in. She's like, "The worst thing you can do right now is bore me," and you're just like, "Oh my god!" like this chick is psycho. But that's not the thing. And I have always wanted, and I've told you this many, many times, I've always wanted to see evil empire. Like I
Yeah,
want to see why
yeah,
people are fighting against the empire. And
yeah,
they Gorst explains this
yeah.
story. It's like, okay, they're gonna put this sort of like audible like sound like headphones on Bix, and she's gonna listen to the sound. And the story behind it is like
A
the
war
empire,
crime.
yeah, like the Empire wanted to just build a refueling station on some planet, and the native population there was like, "Fuck y'all, we ain't gonna let that happen." So the Empire literally broadcast a massacre, a genocide of this, and basically the Empire take like I guess when this species dies, it lets out this scream of terror that
Yeah,
is so horrifying that it
yeah,
like drives people insane. And
yeah.
so not only that, but the Empire decided to tweak it so they just pulled out the screams of the dying children and are using it as
Oh,
torture. I'm like, holy, this is the opening fucking scene of this
yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Like, holy shit. Vix
Mhm.
has no chance. She got no chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so great about it is that the kind of evil that this show portrays is terrifying in its normalcy. You know, it makes it more insidious. When you see a Darth Vader, he's imposing, he's terrifying, but he's very obviously evil. And there's this idea that if you can take Darth Vader down, you can solve evil and save the universe. But when you get into this sort of dark corners of the average human heart. There's something so unsafe about it because it's so pernicious and insidious that you can never stamp it out. You can only repress it, but it will always come back. And
Yeah.
I think you wanted like grand gestures of like you wanted to see stormtroopers take out like a group of people. To me, this intimate level of violence and the pleasure that both of these characters take in torturing and oppressing people makes them far more terrifying than like
Yeah.
some anonymous group of people getting shot down.
I agree. And like Gore's Forever, he's like, thank you. Like he's all happy about it. Like
Oh,
when
oh, the
Dedra's like,
refrains
okay,
were for you.
yeah. He's like, "Yeah, I'm just it's to help you. Just, let like he says that little thing like, "Hey, if you can't speak, just like shake your head from side to side and let me know you're ready to like cooperate." It's
Mhm.
and then if that was not bad enough, like Dedra leaves and the other dude's like, "Hey, can we just hang this other guy?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, do as you wish."
You're like, "Sure."
Just like, oh my god, Dedra went from like,
Yeah.
hey, she's just a woman struggling in a
No.
man's universe to
No,
like,
no, no.
I am the most evil person in the
No, 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 no.
galaxy.
She's a fascist among fascists. Like, I think
Yes.
you've had some concerns in the past that we were leading towards some sort of hero arc. I think we're done with that.
Yes.
I think we're done.
Which I'm so happy about because I was concerned. I'm like, oh god. Because here's the thing, like I when I say like I love the Empire, I love how Star Wars can portray the bad guys. Like, and that goes
Mhm.
for all kinds of media. I love just the bad guys and what like
Yeah.
the inner workings of how villains operate. And I
Mhm.
really wanted to see that in this show. And this is this is just to me, I'm just like, man, this is
Yeah.
so good. So good. God.
Yeah.
Constrain me, Dedra. Just put me in that chair and throw that thing on there.
We have discovered Matthew's kink.
No shaming. No shaming.
No shaming, no shaming, no shaming.
So yeah, I was pretty happy after that first scene. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
all in for the rest of this episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I do think we have to talk about the one little Easter egg in this, in that it's a callback to the Leia scene. Like, it's
Mm,
like,
yeah.
there's the shot of the torture device, and then it pans to someone's feet away. But unlike with Leia, we hear Bix's screams first, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And the cool thing about that is they never let us hear the sound of the
no,
dying, the genocide, right? You never
right.
hear it. It goes completely silent and then just the camera just moves in on her eyes as she's like screams. And the only thing, and this is just a minor like little quibble that I have is even though this was awesome as a way to show that the Empire is so evil, my first thought when this scene was over is like, well, why didn't Darth Vader use that in A New Hope? Like, why do you use an Imperial torture droid on Leia? Why wouldn't he just throw this thing on Leia's head? Or with Han and, Empire Strikes Back or something? Why would you
Hmm.
not use this? So this is
Eh,
one of the small things that happen when you make prequels and stuff is like questions pop up like, well, if this thing is so fucking impressive, what happened to this piece of technology?
I
Maybe we'll
mean,
learn. Maybe we'll learn.
there's also probably, like, all more than one tool of torture, right?
Sure,
Like, we
sure.
have bamboo rods and waterboarding, you
That's true.
know?
That's true. But this seemed pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was effective. It was
I mean, they're
effective.
like, and Dedra's like, we're very excited about this new program that Gorst has created here. Like, it's like they're
Ugh. I mean,
just
it's
like,
horrifying because it reminds me of, like, every corporate thing I've been in where they're, like, rolling out a new product, and they're like, "This is this great tool that you're gonna be able to" like, it's that kind of like the mundanity of the way that things are said. I mean, with that little hint of glee and knowing that she's going to be like harming another human. Oh, oh, they're evil, 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 evil.
poor
But
Bix. Poor
poor Bix.
Bix.
I know, poor Bix. Okay, so like you said, it's very effective. When we get back to Coruscant, we learn that the interrogation was effective and it allows Deborah and her very eager assistant, I'm side-eyeing this
Mm.
assistant, to link Andor kind of to essentially link Andor to the Aldani heist.
Watch your back, Dedra. Watch your back.
Yep. So
She
she
was
is
warned.
well, I mean, that's you know what? You're right. I've been kind of eyeballing him just because I'm a woman in the workplace and I'm like, mm. But you're right. There's actually some textual stuff in the show. She needs to watch her back with this guy. Although she's evil, so fuck her. Okay.
Yes, please. That's. I'm sorry. You were saying something else. Never mind. Never mind.
Well, like you, we see our favorite space incel it also has caught some major feelings. We get another awkward scene with him and his mom at the breakfast. I love all these breakfast table scenes with him and his mom. They never disappoint with him just like angrily eating blue milk and cereal and then like
You went through
loudly
my box,
slurping.
mother. I have ways to tell. Like, what is he? Cyril's like furiously masturbating to Dedra in his mom's shower or something every morning.
100%. The poor droid that has to clean up after that.
See, ladies and gentlemen, this is content you can't get on any other Star Wars show on YouTube. Cyril's Furious Masturbation
Wait,
Tavern or something.
did we just
That's the
name
name
the
we're gonna do the show.
podcast? Did we
There
just
you
name it?
go.
All right. So after which, like the mother's been wondering where he is at night, and we find out he has essentially been stalking your girlfriend, and
Mm.
he kind of confronts her and tells her that she's given him a reason to live, that they want the same things. He gets really grabby. She
Fucking
brushes him
weird,
off
man.
and threatens him, which to me feels like the imperial version of like a rom-com meet cute. So
This is
we'll see what's happening
okay.
here.
I want to ask you, like, what do you think's going on here? Because he got a promotion, which makes
Mhm.
his mom all happy, and Uncle
Yes.
Harlow, we still don't know who Uncle Harlow is,
Yeah.
but it's weird because Dedra seems to be. She was kind of like, I just wiped your slate clean. I didn't give you the promotion. But he seems to think she did, but she kind of
Yeah.
acts like she had no idea and like, what the fuck you doing stalking me, whatnot. Do you think that Dedra is actually like these two are there's a connection being made here, or
I
do you think there's
mean,
something else going on?
I feel an upsetting chemistry.
Like they're gonna make super imperial babies or something?
Yeah, yeah. The master race. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, mhm.
God, his
I
face, I
do
just want to punch it, man. His blue eyes, I just want to punch them or something. I hate that guy.
I mean, yes, he has an supremely punchable face, but what I loved about his eyes is they're, like, super red and bloodshot in the scene, so you get the sense that he really has been, like, staying up all night obsessing about her and
Yeah.
waiting for her and thinking about it. It's like a little touch that I thought was really great.
It's
Um,
so
but where
it's one of the most uncomfortable scenes I think we've seen in this show. Just that, like, interaction, I don't know, there's something very, deeply unsettling about
What's
that.
interesting about it is the power dynamic, right? Like he's doing all of the things that typically are like very controlling or would be very intimidating. Like if a guy was waiting for you somewhere and then grabbing at you, like that is a very dodgy situation. But because of her power in this situation, it complicates it in a way that I think is really interesting. And I think that's kind of feeding into the weird chemistry between them.
Yeah,
Is
because she's like, "I could have you arrested right now," but she doesn't.
she doesn't, and this is the second time she's told him that, so, like, I think he's gonna call her bluff because you see he's totally undaunted at the end of this interaction.
Yeah, he
I'm
smiles when she leaves. It's like, man,
Yeah.
this guy is like the creepiest. He might be the creepiest person on this show. Like, honestly, just
You think?
yeah. And I still don't know where his story's going. That's the weird thing about this.
What?
Like, what exactly is Cyril? Like, how he's not going to just suddenly jump up the ranks of the Imperials or anything like that. He's
Yeah.
not even in the Empire technically. So I don't know what his storyline is.
Literally my same notes, like, where is this going? I do think that his arc is very mysterious, but I think and when I'm trying to think of this sort of, like, from a holistic perspective and the way that Tony Gilroy is talking about the interaction of, like, fascism and rebellion and things like that, what's interesting about him is that he has this very defined and powerful sense of justice, which like on paper good thing to have a sense of justice, right? But what this shows is the way that having these ideas around justice leave him vulnerable to being recruited into like into fascism and carrying water for the empire. It's I don't know, I think
Yeah,
the show is so effective in the way that it presents like intersectional ways in that people are drawn into fascism, and he
yeah.
represents a very particular part of that. I don't
I
know.
read an article that was talking about Cyril and Andor parallels to one another. Both are being shown being
Mm.
radicalized, but in
Yes.
different ways. So
Yes.
they're both becoming radicalized, and they're both going to end up doing awful, horrible things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that gray area. Well, who's right, who's wrong? And when we get to episode
I
10,
mean
we could talk all about sort of, yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there.
We will get there. So, yeah, okay, the last thing for Deirdre is that the Empire has managed to catch themselves a rebel pilot who had the hubris to
Rebel
think that he
scum.
could escape. Well, turns out he's one of Krieger's men, which is a name that we heard last episode, or maybe the episode before, I can't remember, but Saw Gerrera rejected the offer to align with them, showing that maybe he knows what the hell he's talking about. And Miro, being who she is, steps in and suggests killing him and making it look like
Hmm.
an accident so the ship will get taken back, presumably to the rebel cell, which she's right, but she's
Yeah.
so evil.
Hey,
This is the episode where we have done away with this sort of plot line of maybe finding her a little bit sympathetic. Like, she is pure evil.
from a certain point of view.
No!
That's what Star
Stop
Wars is all about, Rachel, from a certain point of view.
it. Mhm, mhm.
Yes, but and again, it's like this cold, calculating ruthlessness to the Empire, and
Yeah.
like as soon as she's like, "Well, let's just murder the guy and make it look like this," and, and Wizard Partagas is like, "Good work, great job, let's get on it right away."
I will say, I know he's just as evil, but I am so charmed by him. Everything he does, just the little things like being like, "Okay, go." Like,
Yeah.
everything he does, he's fantastic in this. All right, let's talk about Mon Mothma, who is continuing to have the
Oh,
worst day ever.
Mon.
Poor Mon. She's in the Senate. She's trying to make a case for the overreach of power being done by the Empire. And all she gets in response is jeers from the rest of the Senate who just like they like basically like ghost her. They shout her down and ghost her. It's a
Shut up.
cool. It's like a
Shut up, woman.
Mm, mm. I think it's a cool sort of world building thing where we see people like flipping the lights off on their
Yeah.
little Senate pods. I'm sure there's an actual canonical name for them, but I'm going to call them Senate pods. And it doesn't get any better for her. She is informed that her cousin has arrived for a surprise visit, and it turns out her cousin is none other than one Vel. Thank,
Yeah. What'd
thankfully,
you
they
think of that twist?
um, I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I thought right away of there's some similarities between that dynamic and Bo and Satine Kryze, like
Hmm.
that little. I don't know what if. Hopefully, we're not going to see the same sort of outcomes. Although, no, we know Mon Mothma survives, so Satine,
Yeah.
yeah. But but I mean, I thought that was an interesting sort of parallel. And it definitely makes sense why she is called a little rich girl who's trying to run away from her family. You find out essentially that not only is she related to Mon Mothma, but that means, and as we'll get into in the next episode, there are some really upsetting customs around age of when you get married and things like that that she's running away from as like a queer person, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting. So they have a
And
little
that
conversation.
douchebag husband.
Oh my, I will say I did love that moment though when she's just like, "All the good ones are
Yeah.
taken," and Mon Mothma's like smirks. Is that the first time we've seen her smile? It might have been.
Could well, I think she put on some fake smiles at the
Yes,
parties and
I
stuff
guess
that
that's
she's
true.
doing.
That is true. That is true. So
First
they
real smile, probably.
Yeah, the first time it, like, actually hit her eyeballs. Yeah, yeah. So they have kind of like a back and forth, about, like, Mon Mothma is having some doubts and some regrets because of everything that has happened post Aldani heist, and, and Vel, on the other hand, kind of gives her the true believer speech and says you reminds her that she's made a vow. And that's like the first time we've heard that. It will come up again in the future, but I'm wondering if that has because we've now heard it in well, we will have heard it in 2 episodes if it has
Yeah.
some
And she
importance.
and Vel also told her the same thing that Cinta told her, right?
Mhm.
When she's just like, "Look, the Empire, we take the scraps. The Empire is what we're trying to go after here." So yeah, and I think that I like this kind of twist. I thought it was interesting because you have to bring all these characters together somehow, right? They
True.
have to end up
True.
being connected somehow, and I didn't see it coming. Like
Mm.
I had no idea this was coming. So when this happened, I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and it makes sense for the story
Yeah.
because and Mon Mothma is like terrified for her because she's like, "You need to go off and like you need to be seen." It reminded me a lot of some stuff like what Michael Caine would tell Bruce Wayne in the Batman movies. Like, you got to go be a playboy too. You can't
Right.
just be out, doing all this because when you disappear, people start asking questions. Like, you got to go be the spoiled rich kid and, getting drunk on the Hollow Net, E News Network or whatever. It's like, oh, look what Val
Yeah.
Mothma's doing, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, just to keep them from getting suspicious. And she's of
Mhm.
course concerned for her because she even mentions at what point, what's he making you do? And she's like, who? you know? And
Mhm.
so it's like, and she's like, there's risk, but it's got to be done, sort of thing. And it's just, it's one of those things where Mon Mothma is still, at this point, it's almost like she's still kind of wavering. She's not
Yeah.
jumped completely in to the deep end of the pool yet. She's just kind of like, is there a way to get out of this? Can I just kind of be on the sidelines a little bit, helping,
Mhm.
but not fully invested yet because she's concerned, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's the idealism that she has met the rubber of the road in a way that she's not comfortable with. And the walls are definitely closing in. There's this great shot when Vel leaves and it's her from behind and she's surrounded by these arches inside the house that are coincidentally in the same exact shape as the prison that Andor is in, and it like she's framed in these things alone, and it's such a beautiful, just a beautiful shot. Generally the architecture of it, her costuming, all of that, but also it's one of those things that if you're watching the show has so much thematic resonance because
Yeah,
the walls are closing in on her psychologically and
yeah,
metaphorically, and now framing
and
her that way.
the thing is, like you said, I like how you put the walls are closing in on her, and
Yeah.
she knows, like, if she gets caught, her whole family's dead. Like, her
Yeah.
daughter's dead. They're
Yeah.
all dead. They're all
Yeah.
gonna be murdered.
Yeah.
And so, and she's like, and we'll get to the money issue that we got going on. But
Yes.
I think she's, God, I just love her in this series.
Mhm.
Just everything about it. And I'm like, it's
Mhm.
gonna be so great when we see her rise above, and we'll get into this more in the next episode. But when she becomes the Mon Mothman we all know, I
Yes.
cannot wait to see how she decides to basically put her fist down and be like, you know what?
Yep.
No,
Yep.
I'm handling this shit now. I can't wait for that moment.
Yep, yep. I was thinking the same thing, especially in this next scene where she meets with Tay to discuss the money problems. And he essentially is like, listen, you're screwed. You've gotta cover this missing money, you don't have a lot of time, but I have this plan. I'm gonna bring in this Davos Golden character who is a scumbag, but he can slyly kind of give you the money that you need to cover this, and it's another case where someone else is telling her what to do, and I was thinking as I was watching this that, like, I cannot wait to stop like, she's so disempowered by everyone around her who's essentially like she's supposed to be this powerful character, but as a senator, but everybody else is kind of pushing her around, whether that's Luthen or the Empire closing in on her, or now Tay, this rare ally that she has, is now doing it. And I am so looking forward to seeing this dynamic change. I don't know what it's going to take. I think it's not gonna be anything good, and I know we've been speculating that it has to do with, like, maybe losing the family, I don't know, but I very much looking forward to seeing her empower herself, and I think conquering the fear and
Yeah.
maybe making some choices that, are gonna sacrifice some of her principles, maybe? I
See,
don't know.
we'll talk about it in episode 10 because I
Yeah.
don't think she will. But we'll get
Okay.
there. We'll
I
get
mean,
there.
I think she can't, right? But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, last section, let's talk about Narkina 5.
The greatest prison in the galaxy.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So Andor is still trapped in the Empire's Panopticon prison camp. Tony Gilroy is not even trying to hide his Nazi allegories and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we start off with Andor kind of seemingly looking like he's going along with the program. Like maybe he's getting a little institutionalized and ground down by this, Empire's prison machine. But what we see pretty quickly is that no, he's playing a little bit of a part, but he's still looking for ways to escape. He's still looking for allies. Yeah, and I appreciated that because I got a little nervous when I saw him, like, so happily assembling the Death Star. But what we're seeing here, because he's a very not he's like an atypical hero, right? Like, he's not the hero that's, like, out in front and
Yeah.
man of action. What I'm watching him do is be this excellent supporting role, which makes sense when we get to Rogue One, right? That he's kind of our secondary hero. And I think that's maybe in keeping with his character generally. you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because thinking back on his character in Rogue One, like I liked the character, but I didn't like care about the character at all.
Right.
Right? It just seemed like okay, generic stock character that needs to help Jin Urso along the way. Jin Urso was the main focus of Rogue One, and this series is like it's just making me love this character because
Yeah.
again, it's like even at the we see all the way back to the flashbacks, all the stuff when he was a little kid, even when his
Mhm.
dad gets shot down and he charges the clone troopers in
Yeah.
the street. And also, like, you had a great point a few episodes back where you're like, that is who he is, that
Yeah.
is actually who he is, and they've been showing that is who he is from the very beginning, even as a
Mhm.
little kid. And so when he gets stuck in here, it's like he's not going to be completely beaten down. It might make the
Right.
audience think he's going to be, but
Yeah.
no, he's constant. And then if you look back to that first episode 8, when he first gets on there, he is like looking around
Yep.
everywhere. If you look at Diego Luna, it's not like he's got his eyes straight ahead and the Empire's moving around. He's taking note of
Mhm.
everything that the Empire is screwing up.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh God, that's why when you watch, I think when we watch this back to back, like binge watch this
Yeah.
show, we're gonna see so much more
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
miss things, right? We go a week
Yeah.
without watching it, like, oh shit, yeah, now that makes sense. They set the foundation so well in these arcs early on. They're like, okay, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. But
Ugh.
yes, I'm really really loving Cassian Andor's character the more and
Mhm.
more this show goes
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and so he one of the allies he's trying to make in this process is, of course, Kino, who is
on.
I love Kino, who
Yeah,
at first just like, refuses to answer him. He is definitely afraid of the Empire and is convinced they are listening. Like the propaganda and the sort of like sense of omnipotency that like fascism tries to impart is working on him, and he's just like white knuckling it to his release date, and he thinks like one of the things sort of the themes that comes out of this, that going back to the portion with Bix and Miro, is this idea that, if you comply, if you follow order, that the Empire will play fair. You just have to follow their rules and everything will be fine. And this episode really kind of undercuts that with, Miro saying like, "Yeah, I'm not going to believe, even if you comply and tell me, I'm not going to believe you. I'm still going to
yeah.
torture you." And then here, like we see Kino is like, okay, if you comply, if you believe, if you do what the Empire says, we'll get out. Like this is the most important thing to do. Andor, on the other hand, knows it's bullshit. You do not trust the Empire. And so that's where the episode title comes from, where he's like, no one is listening. No one is listening because they've made this very effective prison system a well-oiled machine, unless of course something goes wrong.
They don't have cameras, they don't
No,
have micro because they don't need it. They have an
no.
electrified floor that they just
Mhm.
press a button and they'll kill anybody. As we see, they kill 100 people, you know,
Yeah.
to switch a button, and it's just like it's so interesting that, you know, it's getting into the psychology of people who have been in prison for so
Yes.
long, right?
Yes.
And, I always go back to stuff like Shawshank Redemption, right? Where it's just like,
Mm.
"Hey, man, there's no hope
R.I.P.
in here."
Red.
Yeah, it's like there's no hope in here. Like that's a dangerous thing. Stop thinking that way. And it's just because, the institution beats that out of you. And
Mhm.
Cassian's like, nope, 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 nope. And he will pass that along, along the way. Hope is what rebellions are built on.
Yep. That is true. That is a Cassian line, isn't it? And it's a truism. I think it's a truism. We've talked about this before about how like all social justice work is sci-fi because it's imagining a world that doesn't already exist. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think honestly that's why Saw Gerrera is kind of like the aspect of the rebellion that has no hope. Like Saw does
Mm,
not strike me as someone who has hope that they're going to win.
no.
Uh, he just wants to cause as much damage as he possibly can before he goes out, which is why he loses. Like he's not like Saw Gerrera. If you watch like Clone Wars and all that,
Mhm.
he had all the right stuff to be the great leader that the
Yeah.
rebellion needed on this,
Yeah.
but he was so stuck in his ways that he ultimately, well, it does him in.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, so let's talk about these failures. The first is the failing health of their teammate Olaf, which was hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie. I kept being terrified I was gonna see his hand like caught in some
I
industrial.
know, because they kept saying, "Lift your hands up." I thought that was gonna get mangled or something. That's
Yes.
what I was waiting for.
Yes. No, but I mean, it's very hard to watch, but it's also another great sort of character moment where we see Cassian sees him suffering and falling behind, and he immediately steps in and starts reshuffling things and kind of taking care of this character. And you don't get the sense that he's doing it because he's just like, we got to keep this thing going. But there's a kindness and a softness to Andor that is not always apparent because he's such rough edges and so prickly. And to see sort of that softer side, I think it's just a good character moment that
Yeah.
increases my love for that character.
Do you know I found out, the Olaf, do you know what role he played back in the '80s? I found this out today. Remember the original 1989 Michael Keaton Batman?
Yeah. Oh
When
my
Michael
God.
Keaton picks up that guy, and the guy goes, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm Batman."
Holy
That's him.
shit, that's
That's that
him!
actor. Yeah,
Oh my
that's
god, I
him.
can totally see it now.
I didn't even know that till today. I was just sort of watching some YouTube videos. I'm like, "Holy shit, that's
Mind
that guy."
blown.
Yeah.
That is insane. Okay. All right. So the other thing that there's this sort of strange moment where the power flickers and rumors start spreading that an entire team was executed. And this all comes to a head when Olaf collapses. They bring in a medic who eventually confesses to him that there was a mix up. A prisoner that was quote unquote released ended up showing up on back on the cell blocks and was recognized, and the Empire just executed them all to try to keep that mistake quiet. And with that rumor, Kino is ready to rebel.
Um, yeah, this was an awesome episode.
Yes.
It's I
Yes.
mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. Every part of it was, I think you posted in the chat, as like perfection,
Yeah, it's
and I think
perfect.
it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's nothing wrong with this.
No.
Nothing wrong with this at all.
No. I mean, I think it speaks to the absolute mastery of the writing that a simple line that it never more than 12 guards at a time is enough to, I mean, like even just thinking about it now, like gave me absolute chills. You know, when
Yeah.
he's asked him repeatedly and Kino won't answer him, and then he asks him again how many guards are, and he answers, like that tells you everything. It tells you everything. And it's so powerful. And obviously Andy Serkis can deliver a line. But
Oh man, he's
yeah.
got to win an award or something because he's so good in this like 3 episode arc, and he's
Yes.
even better in the next episode, which is
Oh
crazy.
my god, I know, I
Um,
love him so much.
and it's just it's. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this episode. It is great. It expands what we know about these characters in great ways. It puts all of our characters in more dire situations. I mean, that's what you want from a television show. You want
Mhm.
to go in like, how are they going to get out of this?
Yeah.
Because it's like we all know that the prison break is coming.
Yeah.
It's going to show up because they show Cassian. He like goes to the bathroom, right? He's got like a little panel, whatever, and he's like
Yeah.
sawing away something. We don't know what he's doing.
He's up
um
some.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's up to something, and he talks to a couple other like people on the line, whatever, like, and you can see like, well, when they come down the lift, right, that's not electrified, we'll be able, it's like, but how are they going to get out of here?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's like that, it just leaves you, it's like, okay, shit's going to go down in episode 10, and I cannot wait to see what goes down in episode 10. i love
Yeah.
I love this
Yeah.
episode.
The one other thought I had when I was watching this, because after it was over, I felt like alive. I was like, "Yes, let's do this." I was it was like, bummer to have to wait to watch it, but to know that I had the second episode on deck, I was like, "Yes." And I had this sort of realization that Andor has something that Star Wars has kind of lost. Something that the original trilogy, the thing that made it special, like, was, the world building is great, special effects are great, the aliens are great, there's great, many, many, many great things about it, but there are also many, many other movies that have those things that are not as special. And I think what it is that this show and those movies both make you want to rebel. Like, they make you want to fight the Empire. They one of the, it's not the lightsabers, it's not the aliens, it's the way it inspires you. And Andor has that. This show doesn't just entertain me, it moves me.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think what's really great about this is that I think it's going to ultimately, enhance the original
Yeah.
trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Because when we're watching the original trilogy now, even though like there could be characters that weren't in Andor, but now we have greater context as to why Princess Leia is telling Darth Vader, "Go fuck yourself," and
Yeah.
telling Grand Moff Tarkin, "Go
Yeah.
fuck yourself."
Yeah.
It's because it just sort of starts like, okay, yeah, Darth Vader is big, black, and scary. He walks in, he's 7 feet tall, he's has a crazy voice, and it's like, oh, the stormtroopers are all evil, they're shooting people and stuff. It's like, okay, like, even when they blow up Alderaan, right? It's like 10 seconds.
Right.
Obi-Wan says like, "Oh, I felt the disturbance in the force. Continue your training," and then we've moved on, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't see anybody on the ground in Alderaan. We
Exactly.
we don't know. It's just one of
Yeah.
those things like it's evil, that's bad, but that's not the focus of the story we're telling. But now we have the context as to
Yeah.
why the Empire is bad and why they are evil, and that's what I've
Yes.
always wanted to see from Star Wars, and this show is giving it to me in spades. I love it.
I
I
mean, it
love it.
yes, and not only does it give you that humanity and an understanding of the oppression, you also can see what changing it would how it would improve people's lives. Like, if they defeat the Empire, these kinds of prisons will be, presumably gotten rid of. People in Ferrix can walk the streets. Like, you can see how it would impact their lives to be unburdened by the yoke of the Empire.
Hmm.
It's absolutely, I agree with you 1,000,000%.
Yeah, and it's also and it's explained a little bit clearer in episode 10, but I'll mention
Mhm.
it now as to what's actually happening is that the how this person got off like deck 4 or something and he got recycled into deck 2 or whatever it was, and that's why the Empire killed him is because that they're just when they get quote unquote released, they're just shipping them to another prison.
Yeah.
They're not actually letting any of these people go.
No.
And that's the thing, like they haven't explicitly stated, but we know they're building parts for the Death Star.
Yeah.
And even in canon, like all the comics and the books and stuff, the Death Star was always running behind schedule. That's why it was not finished,
Mm.
100% completely. And so that's all part of
Because of
this
a
horrible thing.
prison riot?
Could
Mm?
be, could be. But what I also think that this impacts is it makes the stuff with the remnants of the Empire in the Mandalorian so much more interesting and
Mm.
effective as well. Because even though Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, they kill the Emperor, and we quote unquote save the day at the Return of the Jedi, you do not like this kind of mindset, the Dedra mindset does not
Yeah.
just go away, right? As you have like Moff Gideon and stuff, they are still out there even post
Mhm.
all of this stuff, trying to get
Mhm.
this all up and running again. The whole First Order, all that stuff, it's all still there. Like, this does not go away. You might beat it down for a little bit, but you're never going to extinguish it completely. And
Yeah.
so I think this show even impacts other Star Wars shows like
Oh,
Mandalorian,
yeah.
maybe not directly, but now you start to understand, okay, why is the Empire still there, right? Why are there
Yeah.
still remnants of the Empire running around? I thought Luke Skywalker saved the galaxy. Well,
Yeah.
he didn't go murder every single one of these people. He didn't kill them all. They're still out there. And so that kind of thinking and just insidious, it
Yeah.
spreads. And
Yeah.
then this show's great and being able to show people like, yeah, there's still people who are like Dedra is 1000% pro Empire.
Oh, yeah.
A
Yeah.
1000%. I
Yeah.
mean, she's all in.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, how do you change the minds of those people? I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe the show will surprise us, and maybe we'll get a big turn from one of these Imperials, a Cyril
Maybe.
or a Dedra, or somebody who sort of like sees the light and does something,
Maybe.
possibly in a season 2. I don't know, but yeah,
Maybe.
this
Yeah.
episode was great.
Mhm.
I didn't think it could be topped, but we're going to talk about that next episode. With episode 10, that's the big prison break sequence. So thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to leave a comment if you're one of the 3 other people in the world watching Andor along with us. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Are we on point with our praise of the show, or are we out of our mind? Is this the worst Star Wars show? And let us know.
Whatever. Whatever.
See you next week,
You
everybody.
probably like the Christmas special. Don't trust them.
Hey, Boba Fett first appeared there. It's good.
Oh, God.